Dratnos, we have to go kill Time Walking Wither Jim immediately to get our Arcano crystals. He just spawned. We got to go pronto.
Dude, that's just regular Wither Jim. He's not in the time walking cycle.
Wait, what? Really?
You've been killing him for no reason, just an old item level 50 trinket.
But it's the Arcano crystal.
Yeah, it is a shame they did not add that to Legion time walking. What they did add was Mythic Plus. So Mythic Plus, I guess, was maybe not the right word, because this is, of course, still coming in the future. In patch 9.1.5, we are going to be seeing 6 dungeons returning to our beautiful video game. They are Blackrock Hold, Eye of Ajara, Darkheart Thicket, Vault of the Wardens, Neltharian's Lair, and Court of Stars. And they'll be available for 2 weeks when the first Legion time walking happens, and then 1 week every like 3 months or so whenever it's Legion time walking time.
And also, in addition to that, doing the dungeons, you can upgrade the loot that you get from the Legion time walking dungeons up to that 246 Valor option. However, they will not show up as an option in the Great Vault. So it is a good option for you to farm some loot on characters. It's not going to give you Great Vault rewards, which I would say
it does count towards the Great Vault.
Yes.
Like, it counts towards your 1 and 4 and 10 dungeons. But yeah, your Great Vault will not contain a 252 Legion item. That would be a little wild.
Yeah, and they will also have a separate set of affixes from Shadowlands dungeons. I wonder if they're going to bring back any like legacy affix sets.
Well, we do know there's been data mining of a new Infernal affix for Mythic Plus time walking and Legion. It's unclear entirely how it's going to work, but it looks sort of similar to like Awakened, where there are 3 mini bosses scattered throughout the dungeon, and they each summon their own kind of ads, and they have a unifying theme of this Reign of Chaos ability, which you need to soak or else it will spawn Infernals, hence the name Infernal. Of course, this is all very preliminary data mining. None of this has officially been announced or anything yet, but this looks like what all these spells and abilities tie together to mean. So it could be pretty cool because, of course, back in Legion the first time, we didn't have this. We had Tyrannical and Fortified at level 10, right? We didn't have a seasonal affix there. That changed in Battle for Azeroth, but it looks like they're going to keep the kind of 2, 4, 7, 10 affix structure with the seasonal at 10, except instead of seasonal, it's going to be Infernal.
It's interesting too, because while this is only around for 2 weeks, they are putting developer time into adding like a seasonal affix. They're looking like they're going to change up some of the stuff, and the dungeons are going and moving less from like a nostalgia trip, I guess is how I would describe them, and moving them more towards content that you can actively do for fun. Although it is on a more long cycle. I would say that I wonder if they would like to increase the frequency that they would bring back this kind of time walking, just because they are spending so much time creating a seasonal affix and stuff like that.
Yeah, my gut reaction is like negative towards it being, this kind of on the time walking calendar along with the other time walking stuff. But I will have to see how it works out. I hope that it's like a fun, refreshing thing when it rolls around. But I kind of feel like it would be super fun to like actually build up some experience and play this for multiple weeks in a row.
I also wonder if they're going to add score.
Yes, because
of Legion time walking, because
we have these rewards that have been data mined. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We have some interesting tier 20 mythic recolors that have been data mined. So it looks like maybe they will have some prestige behind them. Maybe they're going to be interested because they are the mythic recolors. So it's gonna be interesting to see like what they are going to do with this kind of stuff.
Right, because of course the mythic sets had like more flashy effects, right? You could see like the shoulders on the paladin there are extremely glowy rather than just a little glowy. And that's the mythic version. So, but a cool new color scheme there. That paladin one in particular looks very sick. I'm hopeful that there's a cool way to go about getting them. I think Legion Mythic Plus score to be able to earn these is a cool idea that jumps to mind right near the top. Of course, there's a possibility that they'll be sending us into a time walking raid as well, potentially. They haven't announced it. I think they probably would have if we were. Mm-hmm. But there's history, right, of them adding time walking raids. So that could be a possibility. But my guess is, this will be tied to Legion M Plus somehow.
Yeah. In addition to that, there are some things that are probably going to be changing just in terms of loot that you can farm. So while the recolors are pretty speculative at this point, like where they're going to be coming from, it looks like they may end up coming from the Legion Time Walking Mythic Plus. There are some changes to trinkets that you can actually farm during the time walking as well. So as it currently stands, if you log into live and you hover over your faulty countermeasure from Vault of the Wardens, that's one of the time walking dungeons, you're gonna have this red text that says requires level 49 or below. However, if you log into the PTR, the faulty countermeasure specifically has this text removed. And there are a couple of other items that have their text removed. The Oak Heart's Gnarled Root from Darkheart Thicket is one of those mobs. The Writhing Heart of Darkness, also from Darkheart Thicket, has their text removed. And the Ember of Nullification from Blackrock Hold. These are all trinkets, by the way. The Writhing Heart of Darkness has had its text removed, but it's also a little bit different in how it works, right, Dratnos?
Yeah, so the original version would reduce the damage a target deals to you by a percentage, stacking, whereas the new version, the version on PTR, is just a flat amount that is reducing all damage, not just the damage it deals to you. Now, of course, this number is the number on the level 50 version. We'll have to see what the time walking number ends up being, but this could potentially be an interesting thing to look at. You know, flat DR on mobs, particularly if you applied an AoE, right? It's your damage and crits. So if you crit an AoE ability, potentially you could be reducing quite a bit of damage. And the fact that the new version is going to reduce the damage it deals to your group as well. My guess is, though, that the flat number will probably be low enough that it's not really something you feel.
Okay, so in other news for items that have this red flagged text, the Jeweled Signet of Melandris from Court of Stars, right?
Yeah, so this would have been a best in slot ring, and for almost anybody who deals auto attack damage, 10% increase your auto attack damage. Like if you just look at your details breakdown after a fight, usually more than 10% of your damage is going to come from autos this expansion. So increasing that means that this text was giving a full percent or more by itself, right? We're talking, you know, a Shard of Domination level increase of damage. And so you could imagine a Domination socketed ring, right? Was going to be way better than the alternatives. However, even on PTR, this text remains, right? That requires level 49 or below text on this, which it's not definitive, but the fact that they've removed it from some items and not from others means it's pretty likely that this will be an effect that does not work on the time walking version of the ring either, which I think is good news, because it would be something you'd be pretty heavily incentivized to farm, and not just like a niche trinket that you'd use in certain circumstances. Although faulty countermeasure may end up being a BIS trinket for certain specs. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, this trinket was really good at its time. It's one of those things, too, that whenever you have to think about loot that you want to farm for Legion time walking, because it looks like it's on this extendedly long schedule, there may be items that are, I don't want to say like above and beyond BIS, but there is potential for some of the trinkets to be very strong in certain situations, like you were saying.
Yeah, potentially an eternal recurring BIS item, right? Where it's like every single patch, as soon as the first Legion time walking rolls around, you go and collect your faulty countermeasure, for instance, right? And you know that is your life now for all time.
Instead of DOS.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing about DOS is, at least in 10.0, DOS won't be the place you go and collect your IQD or whatever. But you know, the time walking is forever. Time walking is always going to be keep looping back. So I'm kind of hopeful that they balance like they've already shown that they're rebalancing some of these trinkets. I hope that they put them in that spot where it's like niche, cool use, but any ones that are actually like potentially would be BIS at 246. I hope they tune them down so that they I think they can be good, especially good for catching up alts, and good if you don't have mythic raid trinkets, mythic PvP trinkets, 252 Great Vault trinkets. But I think those should be better just to prevent this from being like it's always BIS forever.
Yeah, Legion also had this weird RPPM formula for their trinkets as well, whenever that was current. So trinkets like Stormsinger Fulmination Charge from Ivashara is like a 0.7 RPPM trinket, so it's like super low, and it's supposed to proc infrequently. But whenever you were walking around in the open world, or you would walk from trash pack to trash pack in a dungeon, the odds of you getting a like proc on pull were super high, just because of how the RPPM system worked. And I wonder if that's going to be any different. From these
so it was only supposed to proc 0.7 times per minute, but they had like a system where you would proc on pull much more often than
no, it would count your out of combat time as like effectively in combat time that you're not attacking enemies whenever you were in dungeons and open world content specifically.
So it would effectively be procking, like you would, it would proc on pull, assuming you hadn't been in combat for a little bit before, pretty
Correct.
reliably. I
Yes.
see.
And I wonder if the trinkets are still going to interact like that. I wonder if that's like a global variable change that like those trinkets wouldn't even act like that even today, or if that was more just like that's how that trinket works. Because something like that could be very useful.
Right.
But
I could absolutely see that being good in some dungeons, maybe many dungeons this expansion.
yeah, it's interesting to see, and I think that the trinkets are something that the developers are probably going to look at pretty heavily because of what you said, where it's.
I mean, we already see evidence that they are
Yeah,
taking different actions with different trinkets, right? Some appear unchanged, some are getting that a change in how they function, and some are just, well, I guess that ring is just not being brought forward, it looks like. Again, we all of this is subject to heavy change. None of this has been announced or discussed by devs. This is all just us looking at what the game looks like on PTR, and there's a good chance that they will further iterate on this. I think in particular, like any worst case scenario where something is turbo bis is very likely to be changed by Blizzard. Even if it's not caught in PTR, it's very likely they would change it once Time Walking actually came out if they
yes,
realized that was happening. Remember the Tome of Insight that got slapped
true.
down at the start of this patch. Like, so I think that the worst case outcomes here aren't really worth worrying about, but there's definitely a possibility you will be able to optimize your character by farming a trinket that is like slightly better.
So, what do you think that Blizzard can / should do for like time walking and incentivizing it in the future? Because right now, time walking is kind of it's good for going through the old content and seeing what it was like, but it doesn't feel like it gives you like a great representation of how it felt. And aside from a nostalgia trip, does it really? I don't personally feel like it does a lot. Maybe it does a lot for you though.
Yeah, for me, time walking is something that I pretty rarely participate in this expansion. Last expansion I did a little bit, and the expansion before I did more because
Uh
the
huh.
expansion before I felt like it gave even better rewards back in Legion. And that's usually what I'll do, right? Is I will like do the weekly if the weekly is rewarding something that's like good for my character. You know, the heroic raid items, or I think there was a time, yeah, heroic raid items have been the main thing that it's
Yes.
offered. And so sometimes I'm more interested in that than others, right? But I basically have never gone back to time walking just for funsies.
So, what would it take for you to go back to time walking just for funsies?
Well, Legion M Plus, I think, is going to do that for me, and I think that that's something they could look at for other expansions. Like, I think this formula of let's pick some of the best dungeons, let's do M Plus in them, and let's make a seasonal affix for them that is special for them. Right? I could see them doing this for pretty easily for Mists and Warlords, and of course BFA as well. Right? And then I think they could even potentially go back and, if this is a huge success, even add Mythic Plus stuff and recolored tier set rewards and stuff. Cool, thematic to the expansion rewards for even the older expansions as well. Like I would love to go back and do Wrath dungeons as M plus with a Wrath themed affix. With Lich King talking to me and some sweet tier 10 recolors. Available for doing it, for getting Keystone Master equivalent or something.
So something I do wonder about though, and it is a general worry, is how is this going to affect like doing keys on live? Is it
Right,
going to
doing
make
like Shadowlands keys.
is it not in the necessary realm of like, oh, these dungeons are better, blah 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 blah, but more in the sense of like, does it make those dungeons like does it de-incentivize pushing keys like super heavily because you see that there is Legion time walking and then like the community of people who are doing a lot of Mythic Plus gets split for whatever reason? it, it's kind of weird to think about like that though.
Yeah, I imagine that this is a huge part of the reason why it's not just like always available, right? Is because they don't want people to just not do the current expansion, right, and just go and stay in Eye of Ajara forever, much as we may want to. um, yeah,
I've been
uh,
running I have a Shara for 4 expansions.
I don't think it's that dangerous, right? If like for 2 weeks the player base splits into which one they like, and then afterwards, the event's over.
Would you ever add back time walking raids in a more serious manner? Obviously they did Black Temple time walking. Would you
Yeah,
ever
and I
do
think
time walking?
Ulduar as well, right? Yeah, Ulduar
Oh
time
yeah,
walking is there
that's
too.
right.
That there were some good items from there that for 1 week. I remember doing an Ulduar time walking raid to get some stuff.
I mean, we've seen stuff like Project 60. I mean, the old Project 60. We've seen stuff like that where people are leveling characters and then stopping their levels, like capping their levels, and then going and farming content at those levels and trying to get more of an authentic progression experience. Obviously, this is independent of people doing stuff on Classic, right, or BC Classic servers. Would you ever think that there would be some like revision for raids, re-releases for raids in a more serious light, or do you think that's kind of past more or less?
I don't think you're ever really gonna like the people want to feel what they felt when they raided those raids the first time, but like you're never gonna. I don't know.
Okay.
Like I think that for me at least that was a lot of what has been learned from Classic and from TBC Classic is that like it's different, and you know it's not necessarily bad, and there's a lot of value in TBC Classic and stuff, but I don't think you'd really get like I think that just different like time walking versions of the raids that are at that kind of normal difficulty level where you get to relive it for a little bit is one thing, but if you try to like re-release Mythic Tomb of Sargeras or whatever,
yeah,
I don't know, like I don't know what anybody's going to get out of that.
That's fair. And I do generally agree that I think that they're going in the right direction by they're making these dungeons unique enough, right? They're not completely changing what the dungeons were, but they are adding a new affix. They're probably bringing back old affix sets, and they're giving you just a different template for what you can see, which is encouraging for the future too, because maybe we end up having dungeons that are completely repurposed for like, okay, so say we brought back a dungeon for a full season or something like that into the Shadowlands.
That I've been advocating for that is to like for a season, you know, refurbish and bring up a Legion dungeon that's that's thematic for it, right? Like this season you got Mauve Souls, a Helia dungeon, and it's Helia's hanging out in near the raid as well, so it kind of fit, and put the current seasonal affix in there and add it to the regular Keystone pool. I do think that could be cool, and I think that this could potentially lay the groundwork for that happening. But yeah, this is a very different thing from that, right? This is much more of that time walking event, right? It's on for 2 weeks and then 1 week every time after, and then it's gone.
Yeah, I hope it's fun. Personally, I have pretty heavy rose tinted glasses for Legion. I remember the dungeons specifically fairly fondly. Some of the systems are, but the dungeons I do remember pretty fondly, and I hope that this time walking Mythic Plus turns out well. I'm super looking forward to it.
I cannot believe that Lower Karazhan is not included, though. This is so messed up.
Oh, I really wanted to go wipe in Halls of Valor and see the Triumvirate for hours, of course. I wonder if they're gonna... Dude, I wonder if they're gonna retune these dungeons. Like, because some of these bosses, Eye of Ashara had every single boss one-shot you.
Could you imagine if it just came back and it was like, we're bringing back some Legion fan favorites. Seat of the Triumvirate, Cathedral of Eternal Night. Just everybody's like...
Upper Karazhan. Just
okay, I liked Upper Karazhan. I know it got one-shotty, but I loved that dungeon, actually.
I wonder how one-shotty these are going to be.
I think that's a great question, yeah.
At some level, all of the dungeons are one-shotty, even on live. Although they've designed mechanics on live to make up dungeons a lot less one-shotty. But for Legion specifically, Tyrannical, awful. Just actually so hard to play, and the bosses would one-shot you even starting at like super low level.
That's the thing, right? Is that it's like eventually bosses will get lethal, but the thing about Shadowlands is that like the poles become lethal before the bosses do, right?
True. And then also on top of all of that, there was stuff like gear swapping at the time, where you would wear just tank trinkets, healer trinkets, like shielding stuff, a bunch of different legendaries.
Also just Legion legendaries, yeah. My understanding is Legion legendaries are legacy items now, and they're fully deactivated.
They are fully deactivated. So
my guess is that we won't be able to like wear a time walking set that includes Legion legendaries and for this. But I remember doing time walking with a time walking set on a couple expansions ago with like old legendaries and stuff. I wonder if that's something that they're looking at for this. Like, are we getting scaled down for Legion time walking, or is Legion time walking happening at modern levels? This is either way, there's a question of like, how is this scaling? How are they going to balance this scaling patch to patch? Because our characters just kind of vary within a power level window based on what the systems of the patch are.
Yeah, I think that they honestly should scale us up and then just force us to do these old dungeons on the current systems. That to me makes the most sense from like a linear character stuff. Having to farm a very niche time walking set, while it can be fun for some people, I think it just becomes more obnoxious for others. Maybe I'm out in left field though with that opinion.
We'll have to see how it turns out, though. I am very excited for this system. I cannot wait to blast some Legion M Plus once it becomes available.
Yeah, and of course, you can check out all the articles that we looked at today down in the description on Wowhead. We want to hear your thoughts. Are you guys looking forward to Legion time walking? What do you think that they should do in the future to make time walking a little bit more incentivized? Do you think that they're on the right track with Legion time walking or not? Dennis, do you have anything else to say?
No.
All right, that's going to be it from us today, and we will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.